Welcome back to the Kaiser Report. Yeah, it's time to go to Chicago and talk with Mish Shedlock of MishTalk.com. Mish, hello.
Hey, Max, it's a pleasure to be back on. We need to do these more often.
I know. The reason why we haven't talked more recently is because you gave me that incredibly bad recommendation for pizza in Chicago. I'm still recovering from that. But let's talk. I don't want to talk about pizza. I want to talk about this GDP chart that you're all hopping excited about. It looks like the Atlanta Fed back in February was expecting like 3.4%, and then they have revised themselves down to like 0.9%. A shocking revision downward. What's happening here, Mish?
Well, the amusing thing about this, Max, is the other nowcast. This was from the New York Fed, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York nowcast. We've got competing models here. The nowcast has been going up sort of like that, while GDP now is going like this. And I did a report on that today, and I tied back to, a lot of it has to do with the construction report. The GDP now collapsed after the construction report. It went down after a couple of other reports. It went down after the unemployment report on Friday, whereas nowcast was flat. So one of these models is wrong. At least one of these models is wrong, even if they split the difference. They're both wrong in opposite directions in there, Max. I emailed Pat Higgins today he's the creator of the GDP Now model, on the recent dive. The report came out today, but it was backdated to last Friday's job report. GDP Now took another 0.3 off its models on that jobs report. Unfortunately, he couldn't comment on it because we're in this blackout period surrounding the FOMC announcement today. But what a difference. 3.2% from the New York Fed nowcast versus 0.9% from GDP Now. And here we are. If the Atlanta Fed is hiking, if the Atlanta Fed is right, the Fed is hiking with really weak GDP forecasts.
Right. Well, according to the comments that Chairman or Chairwoman Janet Yellen was making, there does seem to be a recognition that asset prices, that stock prices and the like are too high, and that they're going to try to puncture that bubble that they created. So the Fed created a bubble, then they're trying to puncture a bubble. You know, they're the pyromaniacs that go out and set fires and then try to put out the fires. These numbers are terrible. Let me ask you this, a bit of a digression though. The chart that I look at all the time that I think tells a big story is that velocity of money chart, which continues to shrink. The M2 chart of money circulating at the rate of circulation in the economy, which really gives you an indication of if there are animal spirits, as some economists are talking about, and the economy is really going through a Trump renaissance, that velocity of money would kick up. You know, banks would start lending in a way that indicates real economic activity. It's dead. It's moribund. It's sick of forking it. It's going nowhere. Your thoughts?
Well, it is dead. Actually, the year-over-year rates of all kinds of loans are plunging now. A number of people have commented on that. I have not posted a chart on that yet, but I'm going to get around to it. So,
well, why are you looking at this GDP number? It's a fake number. They change the parameters every like 6 months to a year to make it look
well, it's
different
all fake, Max. But yeah, the stock market, well, that's not fake. I mean, that's a real number. But you're correct. The Fed's blown a bubble here. It's quite possible they're lying. They're talking about the strong economy, strong this, strong that. You know, there's a bunch of competing theories here, Max. Let's go over them. One, they're really concerned about the stock market, but they can't come out and say that exactly because they're the ones that created the bubble, as you said. The competing theory number two is they just are totally clueless. I mean, and there's certainly a lot of merit to be said for that. And then the third one is they really believe the economy is strengthening. I don't see it. All the sentiment numbers suggest, and there was another one out today, Econoday, Bloomberg was talking about it, saying, my gosh, consumer spending is up, but it ought to be up more based off of sentiment. John Hussman had a really nice chart last week. He posted a chart of consumer sentiment and overlaid it with the increase in the stock market. They exactly match. It's, if you can work that chart into this presentation, please do, because we're not measuring buying power. We're measuring the stock market.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's what I call financial narcissism. There's a small slice of folks who are making money with stocks going higher. They go out and I'm going to go buy a new yacht, and that is artificially overweighted in all their numbers, and they come out with a picture of the economy that's distorted. But you said something a minute ago. You said, look at the stock market. Those numbers aren't fake. Those are real numbers. Mish, that's not true, because, stock markets typically trade on earnings and a multiple of earnings, and those earnings are fake because they are the result of stock buybacks by these big companies due to these cheap rates, and so that earnings number is artificially inflated, whereas the actual earnings, if you strip out the stock buybacks, are going down. The multiples of these stocks probably have never been higher if you strip out all the effects of the stock repurchases. So those are fake numbers, Mitch.
Well, I don't disagree with you on that at all. We're saying the same thing in a different way. The real PE just took out 1929. We are in a bigger bubble right now than 1929. We're in a bigger bubble than the housing bubble in 2007. The only bigger bubble was the dot-com bubble in 2000. And guess what? On a median PE basis, we're at an all-time high now. At least in 2000, you could find a lot of stocks that were reasonable buys. Energy is a standout there. The indices were skewed by all the technology stocks now. This is an everything bubble now, Max.
Now, I mean, let me ask you this, another kind of thought question here. Back in the subprime crisis of 2008, one of the concepts that was being floated around was that, all of the various real estate markets in America can't go down simultaneously. That never happens. One goes up, one goes down. It's a diversified market. So that's why we can lend into all these different markets. And of course, all the markets went down simultaneously. So now you just said that it's an everything bubble. Are we also in a situation that pundits and economists are missing, where we do have a property bubble simultaneously in London, New York, Sydney, LA, San Francisco, Hong Kong, and we'd have a global simultaneous bubble that nobody says is possible, and yet it looks like it is happening, and is this something that is being missed, Mish?
That's the question, whether or not the Fed sees it. They talk about this as if it's something that might happen if they don't hike and nip this in the bud. By the time the Fed does anything, it's always too freaking late. They actually should have been hiking years ago. So people take me the wrong way when I look at these reports and I say, things like inflation is benign. I'm talking about CPI inflation through the eyes of the Fed. They don't factor in the stock market bubble. They don't factor in housing prices. If they factored in housing prices, instead they factor in owner's equivalent rent, which is the most absurd construct in the world. It's formulated by asking people how much they would rent their home from if they were to rent their home from themselves. And that's the number that goes in when they report on housing inflation. It's totally absurd, Max. So, here we are. They've blown this bubble, and now they're getting ready to hike into it. And here's the other theory, which I forgot to mention. Some of these Fed governors believe they need to hike now so they have ammunition to cut later. That's the way these guys think. But yeah, we have global simultaneous property bubbles to Australia, Canada, and China leading the forefront on that. But we've reblown the bubble here in much of the United States, certainly California. Illinois lagged behind. Why? Probably because people want to get the hell out of the state, and property taxes here are crazy. $15,000 on a $400,000 home. Well, that's crazy. You don't own your own home in Illinois, Max.
Yeah, let's talk about Illinois for a second. You know, Chicago, Illinois, not only does it have the most overrated pizza probably in the world, but despite a massive rally in the stock market, Illinois public pension liabilities continue to grow. Some remarkable numbers are coming out of here. Now, you know, we've checked in with you on this before. These distortions are growing, and it looks like the state is headed toward some kind of quote-unquote event. Your thoughts?
Well, the stock market's up, you know, from 666 to 2,300, and Illinois pension plans became more unfunded along the way. How can you figure that? They've been horrendously underfunded to the tune of $9 billion a year. That's a lot of money. The legislative pension plan here is down to like 13% funded or something. Incredible. It doesn't take, the stock market doesn't even have to go down for there to be, for there to be a crisis. Actually, we're in a crisis now. The only reason it's not recognized yet is because the stock market is still going up.
Yeah, I just did a little calculation here. And, you know, you put that $9 billion deficit number in perspective, that's equivalent to about 45 billion slices of really terrible Chicago pizza.
Hey, I thought we weren't going to discuss pizza.
Yeah, I don't know. Lollapalooza's coming up, right? And, I mean, that'll bail out the city because it brings in all the tourists.
That won't do it. Chicago is uncurable. Its schools are... Well, they're bankrupt. The pension plans are bankrupt. The only thing that's missing is the ability to go bankrupt. There's a number of cities in Illinois. Third largest city in Illinois, I believe, would file for bankruptcy right now if it could, but they can't. Some states in the United States allow municipal bankruptcies. Others don't. Illinois is one of those states that does not allow municipal bankruptcies. If and when they pass that and allow municipal bankruptcies, we're going to see a flood of them, and it is going to crucify the Illinois bond market.
All right, we got to leave it there. Mish Shedlock, thanks for being on the Kaiser Report.
A pleasure to be on, Max, and we got to do this once a month now.
Oh, definitely, especially the beach season's coming up, and they do have a good beach in Chicago, remarkably. All right, well, time to say goodbye, y'all. If you want to catch us on Twitter, it's Kaiser Report. Thanks to Mish Shedlock for being our guest, and thanks for Stacey Herbert and myself for doing the Kaiser Report. Bye, y'all.